Hello everybody, welcome back to the September Mix YouTube channel. My name is Claire and today I thought I was going to make a quick video reviewing these two needle sets or kits by the brand ChiaGoo. So I talked about this idea in one of my previous podcasts and some of you guys were interested in me giving my opinion and presenting them, I guess, and I thought that I would have liked in the past knowing a little bit more about them and what to expect before buying them, because they do come at a certain price. So today I'm going to split the video in different parts. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the technicalities, the details of these two sets. I'm going to start with the blue one and then the red one. And then I am going to expose kind of the pros and cons of both sets, a list of positive things and negative things about them, and at the end of the video I will conclude everything just telling you about my overall thoughts on them and in what case I would recommend you buying them and in what case I would not recommend you buying them. Okay, so I hope that you're going to find this video informative and let's get to it. To begin with, the blue needle sets, which comes separately from the red one. I thought it was important to mention that they do come at different price points from what I've seen, but a little bit more about that later. So I do have my notes on my knees so I don't forget any important information. This is called the Twist Blue Shorties set by ChiaGoo, and inside you get this little needle sleeve that is closed, and if you open it, it looks like that. You also get 3 cables, the blue kinds, and you can, by the way, buy more of these cables, but I think they're around the $10 mark or something like that. I'm not too sure about that. I haven't felt the need to buy new ones. So the needles, basically you have 10 pairs of needles, which makes 20 different needles. So this, for example, is the 3.5 millimeters. So you have one pair of needles in 3.5 millimeters and you have another pair of needles in 3.5 millimeters too, but they are different lengths. So half of these pairs of needles are 2 inches, so 5 centimeters, and the other half are 3 inches, which they say on the website is 8 centimeters, but they're actually 7.5 centimeters. Right, so you do have these 20 needles. They range from the size US 4 or 3.5 millimeters to US 8, 5 millimeters. So they are US 4, US 5, 6, 7, and 8, which is 3.5 millimeters, 3.75 for 4.5, and 5 millimeters. They are made in hollow stainless steel, and I must say they do look and feel quite sturdy. I really don't think they could break or bend even. They're really quite sturdy and they look like they're good quality, to me at least. So the set contains these 20 needles, 3 memory-free cables. The cables are respectively 5 inches, 6 inches, and 8 inches, which is 13 centimeters, 15 and 20 centimeters. They look like that, they're the blue kind. Then you have 2 end stoppers, which I store in the little zipper pouch just in front. This is a little ruler and needle gauge, which is basically, I think, quite sturdy cardboard. These 2 end stoppers, you do have 5 stitch markers, 2 cable connectors, so you can actually connect the cables one with the other to make a bigger circumference. 5 stitch markers, I said, this little ruler, the little blue pouch, and the needle sleeve, and also some how are they called, tightening keys, because on each needle you do have a little hole, and on each cable here you also have a hole, so you can just like put the tightening key in and you can attach the needles very securely that way. Okay, so that is it for the blue set. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about the red set before giving you my opinion and the positives and negatives I found about them. So the red set is called the Twist Red Shorties. So simply they are very much similar sets. The only real difference is that in this red set you have 2 pairs of needles more than in the blue set, and the widths of the needle, like the blue set comes from 3.5 millimeters all the way to 5 millimeters, and this is from 2 millimeters all the way through 3.25. So this contains, I'm going to show you the needle actually so it can be a bit more clear for you. Here they are. So there's 1 pair of needles lacking because I'm currently knitting socks with them. So these comes from a US size 0 to a 3. So this is US 0, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3, which is 2 millimeters, 2.25 millimeters, 2.5, 2.75, 3, and 3.25, so quite a wide range of sizes. So with that, they claim that if you connect the cables and the needles, you can get a length from 9 inches, 23 centimeters, to 14 inches, which is 36 centimeters, which you will realize is the same as the other set of needles, the blue set. So yeah, same as before. It's actually the needles, which the ones they claim are 8 centimeters, don't actually measure 8 centimeters. They're about 7.5 centimeters. You get these needles. They are the same length as for the other set of needles, and these ones are made in solid surgical stainless steel and not hollow, I would guess because the the finest one, I guess, is that how you say it, is 2 millimeters wide. So this is very much tiny. It really is tiny. So in hollow stainless steel they probably would have bent out of shape. So the set contains 24 needles, 3 mini diameter memory-free cables. So I have 2 cables here. The third one I'm actually using to knit socks with right now, but this is the longest one. This one is the longest one. This one is the medium-sized one. So the cables are from 5 inches, 13 centimeters, 6 inches, 15 centimeters, and 8 inches, 20 centimeters, so exactly the same length as the other blue set. You also get 2 end stoppers, different tightening keys, which are super small. They're not the same size. You're not going to see anything, I think. They're not the same size as the blue kit because the mini cables get their name from a reason. They're extremely fine. The technology, I think, is quite insane. It is like super tiny, perfect to knit socks and the like. You also get 5 stitch markers, 2 cable connectors, The same little ruler that I showed you previously, which is in the front little pocket. Actually it's not, oh yeah, it is right here. The same little ruler and the little red pouch and sleeve for the needles. Alright, so now for the prices. I unfortunately cannot tell you a fixed price point because it really depends on where you buy these sets. I don't know about the price in the US. I know that in France it was around 100 euros, and from what I've seen it is also around $100, maybe a little bit more. But ChiaGoo doesn't sell these kits directly. They go through other retailers. The blue set is generally a bit more expensive, a few dollars or euros more than the red set, and these are made in China. Now for the positive and negative points. I am going to start with the positive points. So the first one is the ease of storage. As I said a bit earlier, everything fits inside a little pouch, which is really small compared to my hand. It's really small. I think I measured it and the length of the pouch was 12 centimeters, which is how much? 5 inches, something like that. I don't know, I'm not very good at inches. Haven't learned about them in school really. So yeah, everything can be stored in a tiny little packaging. The second thing that is very much linked to this first positive point is that they are way more portable than other needles. If you were to use double-pointed needles, for example, and you needed to change the size of your needle or take them on vacation or anything like that, it would be a little less convenient. This comes in a little pouch that looks and feels quite durable, so it's a plus for me. Then the third thing is that you can actually get the length you desire. So if you start with a project and then you need to do a lot of increases or decreases, you could either add a cable with a cable connector, or if you have several cables, you can remove a cable. If you still want a smaller circumference in a project with only one cable, you can switch. If you've been knitting with the 8 centimeters or 3 inches needle tips, you can switch to the 2 inches or 5 centimeters tips. So you can really adapt the size of the length of the needle to fit whatever project you are currently knitting, which makes it a very practical and ergonomic, I want to say, almost product, because it's very versatile and easy to use. You can just like switch everything to accommodate for what you need. They are perfect for sleeves, necklines, socks, mittens, etc, etc. Whatever little circumference you need to knit on, you can use them. For example, baby sleeves also, and so that's very practical. Then a little detail that might seem a bit trivial, but for me it's quite important. It is written the size of the needle on them, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. I've actually knitted quite a lot with these needles and the writing on the needles doesn't seem to budge at all, so that's very practical. You don't need to use the little needle gauge that you get with the kit every time you want to pick needles for a project, and you have to like kind of test out every needle to find your perfect size. The last point for me is that you're not gonna encounter any laddering with these needles if you knit in the round in a very little circumference, which is for me. I know that with double pointed needles I always struggle with laddering, which means that you can just like tell whenever you're going from one needle to another. There's like a little gap in between the stitches, and I have found ways to minimize the gap, but it's never going to totally be invisible for me, and these needles are actually a good option to avoid this problem for me. Now, for the negative points. First one, which refers mostly to the red set, is that it is so tiny, it is so small that I think it might break. I have had somewhere yeah, that a red cable did break here, I think. Someone was knitting socks or something and it did break. Was it a manufacturing error? I don't know, but maybe if you're afraid of them not lasting a super long time, the red kind set might not be the best for you. For now, I've used them, I've knit socks on them, and I've just like tried them out. I have had the red set for less time than the blue one. I don't think it would be a problem with the blue one. They look very sturdy and I've used them quite a lot. But the red one, I don't know, I'm not sure. For now, it doesn't seem like it's really fragile, but you never know. So second point is that not enough cables come with the sets. In my opinion, 3 cables is really the bare minimum. Then the third negative point is the price. So more than $100, even though sometimes you can find it cheaper maybe than some. If you were to buy a whole set of double pointed needles in a good brand that's gonna last you a long time, it's still an investment and something you need to think about. For me, both of these sets were actually gifts, so I was very lucky in that sense, and I think that's gonna be my conclusion, but I think they can be very worth it, but that's something to consider. Quite expensive. The last negative point is when you do have to knit very, very tiny circumferences, like for example, if you're doing the cuff on a baby sweater, if you're doing the tip of a sock, like the toes, where you have to do a lot of decreases, or even like the fingers in a glove or the finger in a mitten, you will still have to use magic loop or double pointed needles, more double pointed needles in my experience. So they are useful for some things, but also some things they cannot replace other objects for very specific projects that have like, I don't know, might be 8 stitches, might be 10 stitches, might be 6 stitches. You're not going to get away even with the tiniest cable and the tiniest needles if you want to knit circular. Okay, so I think I have exposed everything that I wrote down. Now for the conclusion, I can see that I'm running out of battery, which seems to be a recurring topic in my videos lately. All in all, for the final word of the video, it really comes down to your preference and what you will be comfortable knitting with, what you will find most practical in your day-to-day life. I know that for me, I do knit a lot on the train, a lot on the go, and these little kits are super practical for me because they're so tiny and you can just like take them everywhere, and having like the tiny cable without any like big needle sticking out is what I need to be able to knit on the train and on the go in general. But for someone else, they might find them way too fiddly and not practical because they will struggle with the tiny little circumference and the tiny length of the needle. So it really depends on what you're comfortable with. I know that they can hurt your hands a little bit, but I have found techniques, I guess, to be able to knit with them without having my hands get too tired. Yeah, so I think it is about what you prefer. If I had to recommend one of these sets, I would recommend the blue one, because it is just more, the red one, the tiny needles, they're going to be very useful to knit socks or projects up to 3.25 millimeters. So this is not all projects, and I tend to knit with yarn that is a little bit thicker than that. So for me, the blue set is really the one that I use the most right now, and that I would recommend, because for one, it seems like it would be a little bit less fragile, it's less fiddly because the needles are just less, well, they're just thicker, the cable is thicker, it is all kind of more sturdy. And I have knit so many projects with them. I have picked out a few projects that I've knitted with them so I can show you. I've knit the cuffs on my, what is it called? Bubble cardigan by Petite Knit. This is in my previous knitting podcast if you're interested in that. I have also knitted the neck, the turtleneck on my terrazzo neck by Petite Knit as well. So this is that part, and I used 2 needles connected from the blue kit, knitting them, I think it was 5 millimeters. Currently, as I was showing you, I am also knitting socks this time with the red set, and this is actually my second sock. My first sock I have finished. It's not blocked, but I knit up to this point, I think, with the ChiaGoo set. So everything is knit with the ChiaGoo set, and then I had to switch to tiny little 2.25 double pointed needles to knit the toe, because there were not enough stitches at the end to be able to have one tiny circular needle work. So I think all in all, it comes down to preference. I would suggest maybe investing in the blue kit if you tend to knit with needles ranging from 3.5 up to 5 centimeters, more than 2 millimeters to 3.25 millimeters. It is also less easy to lose things that are a little bit more, well, the accessories from the blue kit are just a bit bigger than the red kit, which everything is just so tiny, and I was thinking that it is so easy to lose things. They do give, when you buy the needles, a tiny little plastic sachet that I will store my cable connectors and my stitch markers in. I do store the little tightening keys directly with the needles, so I don't lose anything. But the blue set is just, in my opinion, more useful for my practice of knitting. I do not regret my purchase. They are quite expensive, but I think they're going to be very useful for me. Well, now they are, and I think they will remain useful for me in the future. And they're a great tool to have. All in all, it's just about having the appropriate tool for your practice of knitting. So yeah, I think that is it. I hope this video wasn't too messy. It was kind of a struggle to plan everything out and to record everything, so I hope it was useful for you. Okay, so I'm really running out of battery. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in not too long. Bye.